students, Miss Lamb here, and today I am going to talk to you guys and teach you about the Industrial Revolution in America. And so what you guys are going to do is you're going to fill out the guided notes while I talk about this, and then you will turn those in for an assignment. So basically, we will start off with the textile mill and water frame and just some of the science and technology behind it. And so as you can see from my graphic here, these factories, specifically the textile mills that I'm talking about, were powered by moving water, so like a river. And so that moved a water wheel, which then powered the entire textile mill. And so you can read through these different steps so that you understand how this worked. So the Industrial Revolution was a period of rapid growth in using machines for manufacturing and production that began in the mid-1700s. People began creating ways to use machines to make things more efficient. And the Industrial Revolution, one thing to know about it is that it started in Great Britain, not in the United States. And then it expanded to Western Europe and then to America. So the Industrial Revolution was considered one of the most important events in human history. So the textile industry, just so you guys know, textiles are cloth items. And so before the Industrial Revolution, spinning thread took a whole lot longer than making cloth, and everything was done by hand. And in 1767, this Englishman named Richard Arkwright invented a large machine called the water frame. And the water frame used flowing water, I just showed you that image, as its main source of power, so that these textile mills and factories were being built near rivers and streams because that's where they got their power. Another person to know that's really important is Samuel Slater, and he was a skilled British mechanic who is the reason that the technology made its way to the United States in the first place. Basically, Samuel Slater had memorized the designs, like the blueprints for the textile mills in Great Britain, and then he brought the technology to America. And so he basically was a person who was unhappy, had been, I think, more than one time overlooked for promotion, and he just decided that he was going to make his own way and that he was going to do his own thing. And so he kind of secretly snuck out of the country because had British officials known it was him, they weren't going to let someone with his kind of knowledge take their designs and go elsewhere. And so, Great Britain didn't want this information to get out there because they basically had a monopoly on textile production and they were making a fortune doing it. So they're not wanting to share that technology with any other country. But it does happen. Slater does leave. He does memorize the design, and he does build in the United States, and he's very successful. There's an image of Richard Arkwright. So that was the water wheel inventor. And then this is an image of young people, children, working in textile mills and factories. And so that was pretty commonplace back then. There weren't laws like there are now to protect children from working long hours, and there weren't laws in place really, for the most part, requiring children to go to school. And so there were a lot of families who were really poor, and they needed every member to work, and these factories paid very low wages, and they could pay children and women less than male workers. And so that made those type of workers desirable because you could pay them less to do some of the same work. So Eli Whitney was an inventor. You probably know him best by being the inventor of the cotton gin, but he came up with the idea of mass production, specifically of guns, and using interchangeable parts. And so interchangeable parts are where parts of a machine are identical, so you can produce a lot for a lower cost. You can replace parts easier. Mass production is the efficient production of large numbers of identical goods. So this image here just kind of shows you what I'm talking about. Eli Whitney and his interchangeable parts idea Again, it's identical components that can be used in place of one another. So for example, if the trigger of the musket breaks, now you can just install a new trigger instead of buying a whole new musket. And this is an image of Eli Whitney. And then, so at first, I wanted you guys to understand that manufacturing grows slowly in the United States. And mostly it was because land was pretty affordable during this time period as compared to Great Britain. Great Britain was an island nation, so getting a hold of land in Great Britain was sometimes, or a lot of times for most people, very difficult because of the fact that there was so little land available. Land was scarce, and land would cost a lot. So a lot of British workers were willing to work in these factories for low wages because they had no other options. And so that's why it doesn't take off in the US quite as quickly as in Great Britain. So these circumstances begin to change around the time of the War of 1812. So the War of 1812 was a war between the United States and Great Britain, and really there was no clear-cut winner in this war. Basically, the war just ended, and no land exchanged hands. Everybody just kind of stopped. And so, but that's beside the point. What I want you to know from that and understand is that during the war, the British ships were attempting to blockade the eastern seaports of the United States. And basically the whole point was to prevent the United States from importing goods from our allies. The US at the time did not supply or produce a lot of our own supplies. We imported them, which actually was a problem. And, one of the things we realized during that blockade was we better start learning to produce our own goods and be self-sufficient. And so the War of 1812 and the blockade on our eastern seaports basically forced that to happen. And so many people in the United States, including the president at the time, Jefferson, realized that, we need to learn to do this. And we need to be able to produce our own goods. And so then we did. We learned to produce our own goods, and it actually ended up being a great benefit to us to have, been forced into doing that. So that is the end of my presentation, and I hope that you learned something. So you just need to fill out those guided notes. They're just fill in the blank notes that go with this presentation. It shouldn't take you very long, and then you turn it in. And that is it. That is all that I have for you today. You do have one other assignment posted in Google Classroom, so go ahead and do both of those, and that is it. So have a great day. Thanks, guys.